Hey there, I'm Kat, and this is Brews and Reviews. In today's video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about all the books that I read in February. There are 17 of them, if you include the one that I did not finish. So let's get straight into this. First up, I decided to do something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and it was to reread the Heartstopper series. So here's five stoppers? Here's five Stopper graphic novels. I did it again. So here's 5 Heartstopper graphic novels that I read. The first 4 were rereads and the 5th one was brand new. So I kind of wanted to just go back and reread the first 4 so that I had like a fresher memory of what was happening. Because it had been a while since I read the first 4 and then I'd watched the TV series in between having read those. I didn't want to go straight into book 5 without having sort of refreshed myself, and I'm really glad that I just did go back and just enjoy all of these together. I'm going to put these down now though because it's heavy. I'll just hold up this one. So this is a queer graphic novel series about 2 boys in high school that fall in love. And it's just very, very cute. There are a lot of queer characters, a lot of self-discovery. There are some harder issues in here, and the later books do deal with eating disorders and OCD. I found that I lowered my rating of the entire series as I was reading it this time. And I don't mean like I lowered it. I just took it from a 5 down to a 4. And that isn't actually a reflection on the content. It's a reflection on me as a person reading the content. And I think the way that I experienced it this time is that I'm just old. Like, this isn't aimed at me as much, and this time I didn't connect with it in the same way that I did the first time that I read it. And that's okay, because I don't think my thoughts on the content have actually changed. I just think how much I enjoyed it personally as an older person. I say it like I'm like so much older than I was when I first read it. It was probably only about 2 years ago. But I don't know, I just feel like maybe my experience of the TV show, I connected with that a little bit more than this, so then going back to this, it was a little bit harder. I don't know, just personally, this time I read it, I took it down to a 4-star, and that's still a great rating. I still absolutely love these books. I just didn't quite connect with them on the same level that I have done in the past. I'd be interested to reread this when I'm older in the future and just sort of see what I think of it then. I feel like I'm making it sound like I'm ancient. I'm not. I'm feeling mentally aged at the moment. So I think that probably affected my experience. So yeah, I really enjoyed the series and I give it 4 out of 5 stars as a whole. All the books got 4 out of 5 stars. Actually, that's a lie. Book 3 still got 4.5 out of 5 stars. So I don't know why I enjoyed that one more. I think it was the Paris trip and the fact that there's so many different things going on. I don't know, I enjoyed that one the most. Next up, I finished off a book that I started, I think, back in December and never actually finished because it was just one of those that I had on my Kindle for like any spare moment where I had the chance to read and didn't have a book on me, so I was like, oh, I'll just keep this on my phone. Anyway, it's called Merciless Air by Monica Kane. This is a dark mafia romance about, well, I kind of forget. And I feel like that says a lot, to be honest. It's not a very memorable one. This woman's dad can't pay his debt, so she's like, hold on, don't break any more of his limbs, I'll come and live with you. And then the pervy guy's like, yeah. And this other rival mafia gang comes in and steals her and like blows up their establishment. So there becomes this whole big plan about how they're going to send her back in because she does need to go back to the other guy because otherwise her dad's going to get murdered and she doesn't want that. And they're going to train her up and teach her to fight and then send her back as a spy so she can do some investigating because the guys are looking for their long lost sister. It's a little bit convoluted, but the main character of this learns how to be a badass fighter. She trains in Krav Maga and becomes a badass in very few pages. She's just amazing, apparently. And there's some sex as well, and it was like fine. I feel like I'm really selling this one to you guys. Sorry, it's been a long week. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars, and it will fall out of my brain now that I've spoken about it, and I will never think about it again. I am fairly certain. That's not to say it's a bad book though, just that it's not a particularly great one. Next up, I finally reread Magic Bites by Alona Andrews, something I've been threatening to do for months now and just never got around to it. I feel like I don't actually have that many thoughts on this. Whenever I talk about the series, I always say that it's kind of like female Harry Dresden from the Dresden Files, and I really like the world that it's set in, where magic and technology both exist in the same world, but they go through waves, so sometimes technology works and sometimes magic works, and both features dip in and out. There's a lot of different paranormal creatures, shifters, vampires, vampires, etc, etc. And in this book we follow Kate as her mentor has been killed and she's trying to find out what happened, who did it, what's going on. And I really like Kate, I really like this series, and I feel like I personally just reread this one so that I could continue on with it, because I never continued on with the series the first time I read it, and I feel like that was a mistake. I have to say I didn't get super emotionally involved in this, and I think I do tend to have that problem with this sort of book, but I'm interested to see if that is just like this first book, because first books are tricky, and I want to see where the series goes. So I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was How to Save the World for Free by Natalie Fee. This is a non-fiction book about how to save the world for free. So this year I've been trying to incorporate a little bit more non-fiction, just like sprinkling it in where I can, and I just saw this one and I was like, I would like to save the world also for free, that would be nice. So I thought I'd read it, and I didn't really learn anything at all. I feel like it's mostly common sense, but maybe some people don't have this common sense, but they're probably the people who aren't reading this book. I feel like the people who are actively choosing to pick up a book about saving the planet are probably already on the wavelength of do recycling, don't use straws. To be honest, most of this book focused on switching products to more environmentally friendly products and companies. And like, fair, yeah, but that is literally all that happened in this book. I don't think it was particularly useful to me. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, but you know, it was average. So next up I picked up Beneath the Sugar Sky by Shauna McGuire. I've been working my way through the Wayward Children series. This was another reread for me. I've read the first 4 in this series, and for some reason in my head I had decided that I hated this book. I don't know why I decided that, but just something in my head was like, ugh, that book's a nonsense world, I absolutely hated it, blah 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 blah. Didn't hate it at all. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I thought it was okay. There was nothing about it that made me go like, ugh, why am I reading this? Like I thought it was going to be, which is very peculiar. I don't know quite what happened in my head to make me think that I didn't like it, but hey ho, here we are. So this series follows children who go through portals into these fantastical worlds. They experience a bunch of crazy adventures, and then they end up back in this world and they struggle to cope for it. So there's a group home for all of these kids who are trying to get back to their secret worlds, and each of the stories alternates, so it goes like one set in our world, one set in a portal world, like an origin story thing, then it goes back to our world, and this one's set in our world that then transitions into a portal world, but it features all the characters from like the current timeline as opposed to like their past. It is a nonsense world that is featured in this, and I don't love that because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm a very logical person, but honestly the thing that I like the most about this book is Christopher and Nadia. Those are 2 of the people who went to darker portal worlds, and it was really great to see some of the other characters, especially Cade and Nancy. I love that. So yeah, I just enjoyed this one a lot more than I thought I was going to. I really thought it was going to be like 2 stars, hated it, blah. And it wasn't. It was a good book, but it wasn't anything that I found particularly groundbreaking and love. One of the main characters is fat, and that's talked about quite a lot. I think the point is a little bit belabored in the sense that that tends to be the only thing that the character is thinking about, and it is thought about in a positive way, because the portal world that she comes from, she was a mermaid and she could dive deeper because she had more insulation, and it was like thought out well. I just didn't particularly like how it was basically our only personality. I don't know. 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up I read Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This is Ali Hazelwood's first foray into paranormal romance, and if you want to know my thoughts on this, I did do a singular review for this book, which I will leave in the description below. I really enjoyed this book, and I knew I would because I enjoy Ali Hazelwood's writing, and I find that if you do enjoy Ali Hazelwood's writing, you'll probably like this. If you're not super familiar with the Megaverse, then you might struggle on that front, but I don't know, it's worth a try. This book follows a vampire who is forced to marry the alpha of one of the werewolf packs, and she does it because she's trying to find her friend who went missing, and there's a connection there. There's a mystery, there's vampires, there's wares, and there is a healthy helping of smut in this as well, because Ali Hazelwood does that. I liked it, gave it 5 out of 5 stars. If you want to know more of my thoughts, check out that review. So next up I just did not finish a book. Completely DNF'd it. It was Do Not Disturb by Claire Douglas. Now this one had been on my shelves for a while. I actually picked it up because one of the prompts for the Aurelian Readathon was to read a mystery or thriller, and I didn't like it at all. I read the first 40 pages and I was already annoyed with the characters, and I didn't want to read it. I put it down for like a week and kept thinking I should pick it up, and I never wanted to, and it was kind of putting me in a slump, so I was like, no, I'm just going to DNF it. I did question whether 40 pages is enough to truly DNF a book, but I found that I just wasn't gelling with it. And I don't know if that's because me and thrillers aren't really getting on as a genre at the moment, or if it's because this was kind of more of a domestic thriller. It's about a family who move into this B&B that they're going to rent out, and they're just redecorating the B&B. And honestly, the only thing that actually happened in those first 40 pages is that they moved there and they kept talking about this thing that happened with the husband, but they wouldn't say what the thing was. But you know when somebody just says the same thing over and over again but won't give you any details on it? It just becomes frustrating rather than intriguing. It's like, you said it too many times. Now I don't care. Now I don't want to know even if you want to tell me, because you clearly want to tell me but you don't want to tell me. So I didn't care for that at all. I wasn't interested, and I didn't want to know where it was going to go. I just didn't have feelings towards this that were in any sort of way positive, and I decided it just wasn't worth my time. So I put it down, and I just decided it wasn't for me, so here we are. So the book that I picked up to replace this in the mystery thriller prompt was The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. I feel like this book is more cozy mystery, and I needed something very different from what I just put down because I was a little bit concerned that I wasn't going to be able to actually do this prompt. So The Thursday Murder Club follows a group of senior citizens as they have like a group about murder and try and do investigations. And they're very funny, and I just really like seeing old people do stuff. I don't know why, I just feel like old people are such good characters to work with, because by that point in time most elderly people have given up all the fucks that they ever had and they're just like, yeah, I'll do what I want. And these elderly people do, which is great. I like the thought of old people just being really cavalier and solving crimes and just not giving any fucks. I mean, if we're totally honest, it is a bit silly, but I still enjoyed it, so I give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Now, the next book I read was Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. Now, this is a dark comedy romance about 2 serial killers who fall in love and also commit murder. There's a lot of murder that happens in this. I feel like this book was fun and funny. There were a couple of moments that just made me laugh out loud and I just really enjoyed it. This book had so much to it that I really enjoyed. I did a little mini review for this, so I'm going to leave it in the description below if you want to know more of my thoughts on that. It was really fun and I am so looking forward to the next book in the series, even though it's about like side characters in this one, but like, oh, it's gonna be so good. Then I picked up another mafia romance because I'm not gonna lie, I was in a little bit of a book hangover from Butcher and Blackbird, so I was like, well, that will tide me over and I won't really care if it's not very good. So I just picked a random one that I had on my Kindle, and it was Sold to the Syndicate by J.L. Quick. So this book follows another woman who is sold to pay off her stepdad's debt. What is with these people in mafia romances? I didn't even intentionally do this, where I picked up these 2 books where that happens, but yeah, wow, yeah, that was a thing that happened. All I can say about this one is that the main female character is super into this mafia guy doing all the murder. I mean, she's so into it. Explicitly. I don't think there was much of a plot to this one. No. It was just like, cool, I'll take this lady, sure, and then some other stuff happens towards the end, but mostly sex stuff. There were a lot of knives in this, including one time when he had murdered someone with a knife, like, you know, stabby, and there's like blood all over the knife, and then he was like including that in the fleshy stabby act. So that was interesting. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was fine. They probably all need to be checked for like infectious blood diseases at this point, but just put that out of your head before you read it, and it's a fun time. Then I picked up The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. This is the sequel to The X-Hex, and I was reading this with Emily from Novell Novels. Now, funny story before I started this is that I happened to get this book confused with Hex Appeal, because I feel like these 2 covers look very similar, and I started reading Hex Appeal thinking that I was reading The Kiss Curse. I got 60 pages in before I noticed I didn't know any of these characters. I just thought that I didn't remember the characters. I thought, oh, it's not been that long since I read the first book. I'm sure why don't they mention any of the old stuff? I don't remember it being set in England, but it is set in a small town. Like, there's a house and the cat, and there's familiar things here. No, it was just a different book completely, and I am an idiot. So I did eventually pick up The Kiss Curse, and I really liked it. It was very fun. I don't want to say too much about it because it'll kind of spoil what happens in the first, but we follow the cousin of the main character of the previous one and the brother of her love interest from the last one, and they have these 2 rival witch shops, and then eventually they fall in love, you know, because that's romance. They do romance. Also, there are a bunch of baby witches who are like training to do witch stuff, and I really enjoyed the inclusion of them. I feel like it was really nice to have that training sort of aspect. One thing I do need to say about this book though, and it's not a problem with the actual book, it's a problem with whoever wrote the blurb on the back of this book. Because please tell me why the blurb on the back of this book spoils something that happens in the last 50 pages of the book. Because I was waiting for it to happen, and it didn't happen, and then I was like, oh my god, it's nearly at the end, and then it happened, and I was like, it's also a twist, so like why have you spoiled that that is a thing that happens? Anyway, I got really annoyed about that, so fuck that guy, do your job better please. And then the last two books that I read were part of the same series, so I'm going to talk about them at the same time. It's Percy Jackson and the Battle of the Labyrinth and Percy Jackson and the Last Olympian. These are the final two books in the original Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. 4 and 5 are just really fantastic and I enjoyed myself a lot. I feel like so much happens in the Battle of the Labyrinth. There are so many different things going on. You really feel like the consequences are real, and a large part of the Last Olympian is a battle, which I just really enjoyed because it's nice to see the time be taken over something that is a huge momentous event that happens at the end of the series, so I enjoyed that. I will say on rereading this, because I haven't read these in such a long time, I knew some of the deaths that happened in The Last Olympian and they used to hit me much harder than they did now. I don't know if that's just because I'm old and these are middle grade books, but some of the people that died in this, I was like, well, they were barely in the series really, I didn't really connect with them this time, and you know, sad, but I didn't cry or anything, which I'm pretty sure I used to cry when I read that, so again, another factor of me being an old lady. Hooray! Anyway, I gave the Battle of the Labyrinth 4 stars and I gave the Last Olympian 4.5 stars. Had a fun time and I can't wait to read the sequel series again because I'm just really excited to see what I think of this. I have fewer memories of the sequel series than I do of these, so we'll see what I think. So there we have it. Those are all the books that I read in February. I'm really happy with my reading. I finished off reading the Percy Jackson series, I read the Heartstopper series, and I read some other books that I've been putting off for a while, so I just feel like this was a really good reading month. If you want to leave me a comment but you don't know what, then please leave me any sort of purple emoji, because the purple covers on Hex Appeal and The Kiss Curse are largely the reason I got those two books confused. I mean, they're really similar. Anyway, I want you guys to viciously remind me that I'm a bit of an idiot sometimes, so please leave that in a comment, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!